Hi guys, I just wanted to share something with you from my morning meditation today. When I was meditating, I had an image put onto my heart of a butterfly. You know, if you've ever seen a butterfly as it first emerges from its chrysalis, and as it comes out, it seems like it has these kind of huge wings, which are like improbably big, and they're they're packed and they're wrapped inside there so tightly. And as the butterfly drags its way out of this chrysalis, the wings gradually start to kind of almost sort of inflate, almost like as if they're just sort of blowing up and blowing out. And of course, if you picture a butterfly, you think mostly of the wings, don't you? But obviously, the butterfly is an insect. It has a body, so it has a head, thorax, abdomen, 6 legs. Um, but the wings are absolutely dominant in that creature. And what came to me as I saw this kind of image in my head or in my heart was that that's kind of like us, you know. There's actually more of us on the inside than there is on the outside. And for most of our lives, we go around taking care of what's on the outside of us, don't we? You know, we care about how we look, um, the clothes that we wear, whether we're healthy, whether we want to lose weight, or some guys even, you know, like to go to the gym, they even want to put weight on. They want to look a certain way, they want to be a certain way. And we're very much concerned about what we present to the world outside. And I think never more so than at the moment now. And we hear all of the, you know, bad stories from social media about young people, especially, who sometimes even take their own lives because they are so caught up in a desire to look and to present in a certain way to the world. It might not necessarily be about how they look, but the image and the persona that they project out into the world. And as I was kind of seeing this image of the butterfly emerging, I thought, you know what, that's us. Actually, on the inside of us, we are spiritual beings. We are, if you like, wrapped up in this chrysalis, this cocoon of the human body, and not just that, but also the egos that we create, the characters that we portray. We're all like actors. So from birth, as babies, going through infanthood, childhood, through our teenage years to adulthood, we're constantly building this image, this picture of a person, a character, if you like, that we are playing, that we're portraying to the world. And we all do it. We've all got this image of who we are, what we present. It's only really when you start to look inside you, and this for me, meditation is is absolutely the key. It gives us the ability to be introspective, to look inside ourselves and to see that there's a whole lot more to us than that outside. In fact, to the point that what's projected on the outside, this persona, this image that we present, it's not real. It's just a complete illusion. You know, I could don one of those big suits, you know, like people dress up as characters at Disneyland, and they put on like a Mickey Mouse costume and they dance around and whatever. But we all know that there's actually a person on the inside of there. That's not really them, is it? But we totally believe that this suit, this costume that we put on, and more than that, the character that we're playing in this drama or this comedy of life that we're playing is a real person, is a real character. But we don't actually get to know the real person on the inside. And that, for me, is why meditation is an absolute revelation, absolute eye-opener, because we actually get to meet the real person that plays the character. And that's us, that's you, that's me. You know, I've actually got to meet the real person that's playing this character of Johnny. You know, Johnny's just a character in this soap opera of life. But the real person on the inside, the real person, the real awareness that's aware of everything that's going on, has not changed. I may have changed my image, I may have changed my personality, I may have changed the way that I feel about myself, or the way that I portray myself to the world outside, but the person that I really am on the inside hasn't changed. And that's the reason why a lot of sort of elderly people that you talk to will say, I don't actually feel any different on the inside than I did when I was a teenager, or when I was a young person, or when I was a child. I actually feel exactly the same person on the inside. It's only the body, it's only the image, what people see outside that's changed. On the inside, I don't feel like this frail old person. I still feel like the young, energetic, youthful person that people remember from 70 years ago, you know. But that's a realisation, and that's actually the way it is, because the real person that we actually are is the person that's on the inside of us. So we contain far more. This person is just completely incomprehensible, really, to us, until we start to actually find out who they are. And there's so much more. It's the depths that we can go to. In meditation, we almost, as we discover ourselves, it's like we're peeling back layers of an onion to discover new, deeper parts of us that we didn't actually know were there. And it reminds me, thinking about the butterfly vision, reminding me that at the start of the week, I think it was Monday, I was sat in the garden and I noticed that I got this little tiny little black beetle on my arm. So I took her off, as you do, allowed her to walk onto my finger, and I held her up, thinking I hope she now is able to just like fly away and find a safe place. And she kind of circled around a bit, pirouetted a bit on the tip of my finger, as beetles tend to do. And she would flick open her wing casing a little bit, and I'd see a little bit of those little clear little wings that pop out at the back of a beetle's casing. And then she'd kind of stand there, wiggle around a bit, and then drag, retract the wings back inside the wing casing again. And then she'd stand there a bit more. And I thought, she's trying to gauge the wind, and she's trying to gauge the right time, the optimum time to open up the casings and to open the wings and to actually catch the breeze and fly. And this to me, after having the vision, dream, image of the butterfly, served as a sort of analogy for the fact that for us, many of us, the spiritual world, the world outside of our five senses, which when we start to meditate and when we start to contemplate spiritual things, because when we regularly practice meditation, we start to realise and we start to see in the quietness of meditation and the stillness, when our mental chatter has been silenced and we're no longer being preoccupied with the 1,000,001 thoughts that pass through our heads every day, then in that silence we actually start to comprehend the fact that there's more going on than we at first suspected. And we may even start to develop the use of other senses other than the five that we're most familiar with. And it's at this point that we start to taste and be aware of the fact that there are spiritual realms. There are different planes, there are different dimensions of existence. Now, this might sound very woo-woo, very airy-fairy out there, but you know what? Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and quantum consciousness, these are all fairly new sciences, but they're not pseudo-sciences, they are actually sciences that are actually reputable, that have been studied in universities, and they know that there are other dimensions, there are other planes of existence, if you like. And they also start to understand things like, you know, quantum entanglement and the fact that there is a field of unity, of oneness. Now, spiritual people have understood this and known this for thousands of years. You know, it's nothing new. It just takes science a little while to catch up with the things that people have known for a long time. Science kind of wants something really that they can kind of test and study, do experiments on, and kind of put something down on paper, whatever. They want to sort of prove it in some way, and they've got specific parameters of the things that they want to record. It doesn't really work that way, really, with spirituality, but that at least science is making connection, knows that a quantum particle in one location and a quantum particle in another location can be intrinsically linked by this field of unity, by this quantum field. So if this one does something, then this particle also reacts to it. There's no physical connection to them. There's nothing connecting them really that can be seen. that can be perceived at all, but that can happen. And when you realise that that can happen, and it can be two quantum particles at different sides of the universe that can interact with each other, when you realise that science is talking about things like that, you realise that all of us, of course, we're all connected. We're all human beings. We're all part of one united consciousness that we're all part of. And I'm going off a little bit of at a tangent here, which I tend to do sometimes. But going back to the analogies of the butterfly and the beetle, what I'm trying to say is that we really need to start to get to grips with the fact that we spend far too much time on the outer part of ourselves, the outward appearance, our persona, our personality, and we don't spend enough time discovering what's on the inside, the real person. And that real person has a connection to all of the rest of the universe, all the rest of consciousness. Every person, every creature, every plant on the planet and in the universe, we have a connection. But we can only really discover that connection when we start to look inside. So let me encourage you, if you don't already have a meditation habit, get into meditation, learn to meditate. Start to go within. Start to become aware of not just the thoughts in our heads, not just on the things that are outside and external, but of what's actually going on in your heart, on the inside. It's only when you're still and quiet that you can see, you can hear, you can experience, you can start to relate as a human being to something that is much bigger. We're all on a journey, and it's an exciting journey, and it's a journey that we're on from the moment we're born all through our lives and even beyond that. But it's good to know that we can, even though we are trapped, if you like, in this chrysalis that we're in, we can start to open up and we can start to experience what's out there. I hope that made a little bit of sense anyway, but I just wanted to share that with you today. You all take care, and I'll speak to you very soon. Namaskar.